Hello and welcome to this special programme. I'm Stephen Cole. So, in the last 90 minutes, the three men hoping to become the next Prime Minister of Britain battled it out in the second televised debate. Who landed any punches? Well, we'll find out. The country will go to the polls in 2 weeks' time. The party's leaders covered a wide variety of issues, from Afghanistan to the economy and immigration. Last week, the man considered to be the underdog, Nick Clegg, he's the leader of the Liberal Democrats, came out on top in many of the opinion polls. But how did they fare and how did he fare this time? Let's get some reaction from that debate. With me is Professor Stephen Haysler from the Global Policy Institute. He's a specialist in British politics. And Nikki Owen. And Nikki's a leading charisma and confidence expert, and she'll be giving us some reaction on the leader's body language throughout this debate. And let's start with you, Nikki. What changes did you notice, if any, this week from last?
Wow. First of all, Nick Clegg, everybody's expectations were really, really high. And he delivered exactly in the same way, yet it seemed to be a little bit more sizzle than substance. So for me, the boy wonder didn't really deliver tonight. The biggest improvement for me was absolutely David Cameron. I noticed he tilted his chin down, so he lost that air of arrogance. He absolutely, if you look at his eyes, they were absolutely on fire, suggesting that he had fire in his belly, he was passionate. And what was really great is that he had a real gravitas. Gordon Brown, I thought, was very similar to how he was last week. He was absolutely a man who knew all the facts and figures, and yet those gestures that he uses sometimes, I find...
We're tight on him at the moment. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, look at his gestures. They're so contrived. And I just feel that it's all a bit too rehearsed. I hear he's been in rehearsals all day, and you can tell. And it almost, if you look at his eyes as well, his eye, his good eye is actually flickering as if processing all the information. There's so much he wants to say, and he's almost delivering with too much aggression, and really he needs to back off and warm up a bit.
Okay. All right, well, that's a view of the body language expert on their performance. Of course, the difference this week was Nick Clegg was in the middle. Stephen Haysler, let's get into the politics. Notice any real changes from last week in approach or style?
Well, I think we've established now we've got a three-party system in this country. That's what happened last week. Three guys in the battle.
It took television to do that.
It took television to do it. Television has established that, and I agree with the expert, the American expert, who said today that he really thinks the mood is set in the first television debate, and the thing today is not to make any big mistakes, because big mistakes can set you back. I think none of them made any big mistakes. I think this was much more a debate about substance, I really do, and I think Gordon Brown's opening statement in which he said, I'm not your man if you're interested in style. I'm not your man, this is substance, these are my views. I think that is now what we're going to hear for the next 2 weeks, because the style has been set. All these three men are very competent, and as long as they don't make a mistake, I think we're now going to have things. People are going to think about the unemployment, they're going to think about their futures, and they're going to think about which of these men is best to be Prime Minister, irrespective of the body language, if you don't mind me saying. And so I think that was the first debate that decided that.
Stephen, it seemed to be, to me anyway, sort of a fairly clean contest.
Yes.
Very few low blows. I mean, although Gordon Brown did deliver a rebuke to the other two when he said, in fact, he said this. Let's have a listen.
I think you know who these two guys remind me? They remind me of my two young boys squabbling at bath time, and they're squabbling about whether to have referendums on the European Union. What we need is jobs and growth and economic recovery. We work with our partners to get that, and the sooner Nick realised also we had to work with America and Europe to get economic growth in the future, the better. I'm afraid David is anti-European. Nick is anti-American, and both of them are out of touch with reality.
OK, so he landed a punch there, Stephen.
I think he did, because his argument has been, and Labour's strategy has been, to say, I'm the Prime Minister, these two are squabbling amongst each other. Cameron wanted to be the sole agent of change, because if you can imagine Cameron up against Brown on his own, he'd have been much more powerful. Gordon Brown represents the past, I represent the future. Whereas now what we've got is two people representing the future, and that's good for Labour.
OK, Nikki?
Yes, for me, I actually think that David Cameron tonight actually upped his game quite dramatically. And I think that when we look at the results of the polls tonight, I think it will look good on him.
There was a lot of pressure on Cameron, and he
looked
changed his
relaxed,
technique.
though, and
well,
I like
that's
the
skill.
fact that he looked a little bit pink and flushed, and at times he got a bit angry. I think he got a bit angry when he was talking about the lies of Gordon Brown. And I like that about him. It showed that the man has got emotion in him. And I think contrasting that to last week, where his chin was up, he looked a little bit too polished. There was a little bit too much of a wall between him and the viewers.
He didn't seem to have any fire in his belly last week.
No, he
and
did,
his
though,
television trainers had obviously told him to talk to the audience, not to the camera.
Well, although did you see that he was talking to the audience and then he switched to the camera?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, next time he would benefit if he made that a little bit more seamless.
All right, Stephen, I mean, what did you think of Cameron's performance?
I think as a performance, I think it was okay. It was better than last week, but he still has this great problem. You've got two young agents of change there. Not one, you've got two. So you've got a choice.
So you've got to discriminate very clearly to the audience.
If you want a Prime Minister, you want the same thing, you're worried about the future, you don't want risk, you've got one candidate to choose. If you want change, you've now got two. And by the way, although I agree that Cameron upped his game, I still think Clegg is a very attractive candidate.
He's certainly
very attractive, young,
telegenic.
fresh candidate.
Stephen, I want to move on to something more serious, because the whole point, or one of the reasons for this debate, was foreign policy, international affairs.
Yes.
And of course, top of the agenda, at the moment anyway, is Afghanistan. Let's hear what they had to say about that.